Hello, hello, friends, and welcome to another episode of the English Hour with Kyle Miller. Of course, I'm Kyle Miller, and I thank you for tuning in and joining me on this new audio journey here in podcast form. And today's show, it may not be as technically amazing as other episodes, but I'm working on it. We'll get there. We're going to refine things, including the music and some effects and some new kind of fancy sections in the coming weeks. But for now, we're keeping it simple and going back to my roots, let's say, going back to the style of content that people have requested. And I asked people, I said, should I do challenges like the warm-up gym and the interrogative challenge? And people said, yes, we want challenges. Queremos los retos. Así que os voy a dar los retos de siempre. If you know my other shows, you know what I'm talking about. So we're going to include those. But today, we also talk about a very interesting topic. At least I think it's very interesting, which is kind of the evolution of English and how English has a little problem, which is the second person singular and second person plural. You. We say you in both cases. In Spanish, you have tú, and you have vosotros. In English, it's just you. So as a result, regionally, people have looked for alternatives. They've looked for a way around this. Han buscado opciones o maneras de decir vosotros, básicamente. And it's regional, right? So you have y'all in the southern United States, y'all, or even use in places like Ireland, and you guys in a lot of places, including Canada. So I'm going to talk about some of these expressions, why they're used, how they're used, and a little bit about this, the history of this and some of the evolution behind it. We're also going to look at some expressions with make and do and maybe solve some problems here with make and do. Es decir, el verbo hacer en español, en inglés puede ser make o también puede ser do. Así que vamos a enfocar un poco en eso y mirar unos casos especiales con eso. Y también, I'm glad to be back. I'm glad to be back. Me alegro. We're going to look at this structure, to be glad. I'm glad I have this show. Es curioso porque I'm glad I have. Lleva dos sujetos. Es curioso. I'm going to explain this. We're going to talk about this and plenty more on our show. So let's get started. All right, starting off our show today, we are going to begin with some translation. Yes, let's jump into, you know it, everybody. It's time for today's warm-up gym. All right, so we're going to start with a few sentences of translation. So I'll give you the sentence in Spanish, and it's your job to say it, of course, in English. Okay. Number one, mi jefe tiene un acento británico. My boss has a British accent. My boss has a British accent. Y hace falta el a, right? Hay gente en casa diciendo, my boss has British accent. Claro, pero my boss has a British accent. Okay. Se te cayó. You dropped it. You dropped it. Se te cayó. You dropped it. So, dejar algo caer, to drop, right? You dropped it. Me encanta mezclar bebidas. I love to mix drinks. Yeah, I love to mix drinks. I love to mix drinks. Now, you could also say, I love mixing drinks. After the verb to love, you can say to infinitive, or you can use the gerund, the ing. Okay? I love mixing drinks. I love to mix drinks. I like to mix drinks. I like mixing drinks. With the verb to enjoy, que es disfrutar, o me gusta, pero tirando a disfrutar. En este caso, no podemos usar to. We don't say I enjoy to mix. No, we say I enjoy mixing drinks. Pero me encanta, I love to mix drinks, ¿ok? No sé cómo ahorrar dinero. I don't know how to save money. I don't know how to save money. No sé cómo ahorrar dinero. I don't know how to save money. Siempre estás cambiando las reglas. You're always changing the rules. Las reglas, the rules. You're always changing the rules. Okay, that was 5 from what I call intermediate. Now let's go to a higher level of difficulty, okay? Okay, here we go. Antes hacíamos todo juntos. We used to do everything together. Claro, antes hacíamos todo juntos. We used to do. Used to, más infinitivo, ¿vale? We used to do everything together. Mm-hmm. Ahora ni siquiera me hablas. Now, you don't even talk to me. Ni siquiera. Not even. So here we say you don't even. Es el verbo to talk, ¿vale? Y no puede decir not even you talk to me, sino you don't talk to me. You don't even talk to me. So if this sentence were affirmative, you could say you talk to me. In the negative, you don't talk to me. And then here, ni siquiera, you don't even talk to me. So sometimes if you take this and you simplify the sentence, and then you practice putting it into affirmative, negative, interrogative, you can sort of see how the word order fits and develop a better mastery, right? Puedes llegar a dominar esas estructuras, ¿vale? You don't even talk to me. Qué triste. You don't even talk to me. Okay? Siempre pareces cansado y irritable. You always seem tired and irritable. Es un poco triste eso, ¿eh? No quiero discutir contigo. I don't want to argue with you. So discutir en ese caso, acoloradamente, ¿no? We could say to argue. I don't want to argue with you. I don't want to argue with you. Okay. Let's do a couple more on a different topic here, okay? Hay un viejo dicho sobre ese tema. There's an old saying about that subject, en ese tema. There's an old saying about that subject. An old saying, un dicho, un viejo dicho. There's an old saying about that subject. Okay. Todos a favor del plan, que levanten la mano. All in favor of the plan, raise your hand. Que levanten la mano. All in favor. Todos a favor del plan. All in favor of the plan, raise your hand. Now, fíjate, no es rise your hand, sino raise. Remember the difference? To raise is a transitive verb. You raise something else. Que levanten la mano. Raise your hand. I am raising my hand. My hand is rising. Eso es otro verbo. Mi mano está subiendo. My hand is rising because I am raising it. It's called a transitive verb. We have a direct object there. I am raising, and then indirect object. I am raising my hand. My hand is rising. The government raises taxes. When the government raises taxes, taxes rise. If they raise interest rates, if the central bank raises interest rates will rise. Rise, rose, risen. So this is an irregular verb, and then the verb to raise is a regular verb. Raise, raised, raised. Lately, the government has raised taxes a lot, for example. So taxes have risen, han subido. Taxes have risen. Okay, so rise, rose, risen, raise, raised, raised. The sun, for example, the sun rises in the east, and the sun sets in the west. It rises in the east, and it sets in the west. Okay, now I think we're all warmed up. I want to move on to talk about something else, something that I think is quite interesting. So today I want to talk about the pronoun you. And you might say, oh, but Kyle, this is boring. You're talking about the pronoun you in the second person? Second person, so we say you for singular, and we also say you for plural. And I think this is kind of interesting, and it represents, in my opinion, a flaw, a problem in the English language. So I actually researched this, and of course you have a differentiation in Spanish. You say tú para el singular, y claro, y luego vosotros o también ustedes in español, right? And in French they have tu and vous. Okay, but in modern English, we only have you in both singular and plural. So if you say, for example, are you coming? What do you mean by that? Do you mean one person, 5 people, 1 million people? What do you mean? But interestingly enough, this hasn't always been the case. Okay, English used to have both. We used to make this distinction. In fact, we also used to have an informal singular as well as a formal singular. We used to say thou for informal and thee for singular, for the singular object in a more formal setting. So thou, like wherefore art thou Romeo? If you look at Shakespeare or you look at Old English, you'll see thou and thee, and then in the plural you have ye and you. So you was a plural form exclusively. You was not used as the singular. But over time, you became polite and formal, and people started using it for singular as well. Kind of like the French vous, which can be used for singular in French. So vous, vous avez, but vous can be used for a formal singular in French. So eventually, the word thou completely disappeared from everyday speech, and the word you took over both roles, which is what we have now. Now, what was the natural reaction to this? Well, we had a problem. We needed a way to differentiate between singular and plural. So what did people do? Well, they came up with regional dialects. So for regional solutions. So you have, for example, in the southern United States, you have y'all. Are y'all coming? Right? And it can mark inclusive or exclusive groups. You can also use all y'all. All y'all. This is like strongly plural. It's used like with everyone. Okay? So with a large group, you can say, are all y'all coming? So not just y'all, but all y'all. It's like a bit stronger, emphasizing that it is a larger group. Now in Ireland, you have use or sometimes yous. And I've talked about this before on the radio, how in Nova Scotia, Nueva Scotia, which is my part of the world, now not on mainland Nova Scotia, where I'm from, but where my mother is from, donde viene mi madre, la isla de Cape Breton, hablan como casi con acento irlandés. Bueno, muy parecido, very similar to an Irish accent. And they say this too. They say yous. I remember my uncle saying to me, are yous hungry yet? Which is like use, which is a local attempt at a plural you. So we have, in Ireland, they'll also say ye as well, which comes from Old English, or yous or yis, plural marked with that S, right? Are yous going out tonight? Or what are yis doing? So Newfoundland English in Canada has similar forms due to this Irish influence, and Cape Breton Island, which is sort of between mainland Nova Scotia on the east coast, la costa Atlántico, and Newfoundland. So you have Cape Breton Island, and then I would say stronger in the Canadian province of Newfoundland. Then you have the northern U.S., where you have northern U.S. and also mainland Canada. You'll see this as well. You guys. Very casual in the U.S. What are you guys doing? So, and guys, by the way, is not just for male. It can be used for female, too. You can have a group of girls or a mixed group, and you could say, what are you guys doing? Are you guys coming to the party? Are you guys ready? So it's now used in a gender-neutral sense. Are you guys coming? So, are you coming? Singular. Are you guys coming? Can indicate a plural, okay? But like I said, really the you, it can be used for plural as well. It should be. But you guys helps emphasize that it's a plural group. And this is one that I would say, now these are all wrong. These are not, I'm not telling you to use these structures because it's not correct English. But I would say that you guys is probably the most common one. And now in Australia, they also use use, and they use you guys a fair bit. In the UK, sometimes they'll say you lot. Are you lot coming? That is less common and very British. But if you're going to consider one of these, I would recommend you guys. And then I've even heard the possessive. Is that where because it's wrong, you'll hear people say, is that your guys' car? Is that your car? Is that your guys' car? Que está mal dicho. Hombre, está muy mal. Is that your, debería ser, is that your car? Plural. But, so it's a deficiency. Es un problema con el idioma, pero es algo que vas a oír. You will hear this. You will notice this. Okay? I guess what we've learned here is that over time, languages are a living thing. They evolve. And when a language loses a distinction, speakers will naturally try to rebuild it. So we lost the singular versus plural you over time, and we've created all these versions. Y'all, yous, ye, you guys, use lot, or you lot. All of these are the result of a need for this distinction and people trying to improve the language. So English once had thou and ye, but we simplified the system. And ever since, speakers from Texas to Dublin have been inventing their own plural you to fix the problem. So when you hear y'all or yous, you're not necessarily hearing bad English. You're hearing English repairing itself. Well, I must say that I'm glad you're listening. Me alegro. I'm glad. In fact, I want to talk about this structure. I'm glad. It's a sentence that I think, or structure that is worth a little bit of study time, right? To say, me alegro de haber hecho algo, es curioso porque aquí hace falta dos sujetos, right? Me alegro de haber venido. I'm glad I came. Me alegro de haber hecho el esfuerzo de venir. I'm glad I made the effort to come. Me alegro de haber tenido bastante dinero para pagar el taxi. I'm glad I had enough money to pay for the taxi. Now, something that I want to mention is if you choose to use this in the past, cuidado con eso. Si quieres hablar en el pasado, en español, sería como, me alegro de no haber ido a la fiesta. Pero en inglés es más fácil, Okay, when we use the past, we use the simple past in English, whereas you use the past perfect. So you say, for example, like I say, me alegro de no haber ido a la fiesta. No haber ido. But we're not going to say, I'm glad I hadn't gone. We say, I'm glad I didn't go. We use the simple past, okay? I'm glad I didn't buy that house. Me alegro de no haber comprado aquella casa. I'm glad I didn't. Vamos al pasado simple. ¿Vale? Es más fácil en inglés. I'm glad I didn't buy that house. I'm glad I didn't say anything. Me alegro de no haber dicho nada. Pero en inglés, pasado simple. I'm glad I didn't say anything. I'm glad I didn't go to the conference. I'm glad I didn't spend the money. I'm glad I didn't upgrade the system to the new version because it caused problems. Lo que sea. Okay? And then we can also have a subject, a different subject. I'm glad you, right? Me alegro de que consiguieras terminar tu novela. I'm glad you managed to finish your novel. Me alegro de que él pudiera ayudarnos. I'm glad he was able to help us. Me alegro de que se fueran temprano. I'm glad they went early, or I'm glad they left early. And then in the past, we simply introduce an auxiliary verb, in the negative, we would introduce the auxiliary verb, I'm glad you didn't. I'm glad you didn't have to call the plumber, for example. Me alegro de que no tuvieras que llamar al fontanero. I'm glad you didn't have to call the plumber. I'm glad it didn't rain. Me alegro de que no lloviera. I'm glad it didn't rain. Me alegro de que no fuera importante. I'm glad it wasn't important, okay? I'm glad. So, me alegro. I'm glad. And this is a structure that, for some reason, I want to mention today because I would say my students don't use this structure very often. But it's a common structure for us, and it's a good one to know. It's a good one to master, okay? I'm glad that I spent a bit of time on this. Now, I'm glad to have spent. Se puede decir, pero es mucho más común en pasado usar el pasado simple, ¿vale? I'm glad I spent a little time on this because I think it will be helpful for you. Well, back by popular demand, friends, it is the interrogative challenge. That's right, I am going to give you the answer to the question, and you can ask me the question that I've already answered, okay? So I'm going to give you the answer, you ask the question. Here we go, out loud, siempre en voz alta, ¿vale? Number 1, he did it last week. When did he do it? When did he do it? Oh, he did it last week. He's done it twice so far this month. How many times has he done it so far this month? How many times? ¿Cuántas veces? Twice, right? Twice so far this month. Es un número de veces. No es una frecuencia. Bueno, es una frecuencia twice this month. But here we're saying how many times. If I say he does it twice a month, then you say how often does he do it? Una frecuencia, okay? We solved it by means of a special heat process. How did you solve it? How did you solve it? Oh, by means of a special heat process. The report is 24 pages long. How long is the report? Hey, how long is the report? Oh, it's 24 pages long. I've gone over 2/3 of the report. How much of the report have you gone over? So to go over es como repasar, ¿no? I've gone over 2/3 of the report. How much of the report have you gone over? I turned down the offer because it was expensive. Why did you turn down the offer? Rechazar, ¿vale? To turn down, rechazar. Why did you turn down the offer? I turned down the offer because it was expensive. So notice how we link why goes with because. ¿Por qué? Porque sí. ¿Por qué tal? Why did you turn down the offer? I turned it down because whatever, okay? So there's certain words that go together here. Why tends to be accompanied by an answer with because. Okay? You can learn the process by observation. How can I learn the process? How can I learn a process? Yeah, by observation. His phone number is 336-8179. What's his phone number? Hey, what's his phone number? His phone has been out of order for 2 weeks. How long has his phone been out of order? Fuera de servicio, out of order. How long? So, remember, for plus a period of time tells us how long something lasts, or lasted, or will last, or has lasted. Okay, it has been out of order for 2 weeks. How long has his phone been out of order? You can learn English fast by studying every day. How can I learn English fast? By studying every day. Okay? So this has been our interrogative challenge for today, and I know it may be tough. So if you found it difficult, the beauty of the podcast is you can go back. Puedes volver y repetir. Right? You can repeat it until you're able to form those questions perfectly. And then go back to the episode from last week. Go back, and that's my challenge. Go back to the previous episode, and near the end of the last episode of the English Hour with Kyle Miller, you can find our interrogative challenge. I challenge you, now that you've done this one, to go back and do the challenge from last week. Even if you've already done it, go back and do it now and see if you do better than you did last week. Okay? Eso es el reto de hoy, de ahora. Okay? So I want you to do this. I want you to stop the podcast right now. Listen to the end of the podcast. Hombre, vamos a hacer una cosa. Listen to the end of the podcast. After the show, I want you to stop it, and I want you to go back and listen to the interrogative challenge from the previous episode and try to do it and see if you do better on that than you did the first time, okay? I think that's a good idea. Every time you listen to one of these episodes, imagínate, cada vez que escuchas un capítulo, si paras y luego vuelves, no hace falta escuchar todo el capítulo otra vez, pero ve al capítulo anterior y repasa el reto interrogativo, ¿vale? Solamente eso. Bueno, el warm-up gym también, las frases también te sirven mucho. Pero puedes volver. El reto de hoy es eso, es volver una vez que acabas de escuchar eso. After listening to this, go back and try the interrogative challenge from episode number 1, the previous episode, okay? And see how you do. And if you're listening to this, feel free to send me a message. Mándame un mensaje también and tell me how you did, okay? Remember, you can find me on Instagram. You can find me on Twitter. I'm Kyle Miller is a name there, and I am here for you. You can interact with me at any time. If you have questions about the show, feel free, right? You are more than welcome to write to me, and I will respond to you, okay? But now I want to move on and look at one more thing before we finish today's episode. All right, before we finish today, I want to talk about make and do. Ooh, and you might say, but Kyle, eso me cuesta, right? We have, or you might say, hemos visto eso en otros programas. And it's true, we've practiced this before, but I want to address this. Quiero mirarlo de otra manera. Estamos hablando del verbo hacer en castellano. Hacer, que puede ser make o puede ser do, ¿vale? So, make and do. So, make es hacer en el sentido de fabricar, elaborar, confeccionar. Whereas do, típicamente es como hacer en el sentido de realizar o llevar a cabo algo, ¿vale? So to make, you are fabricating, you're creating something. I'm going to make a snowman, right? I'm going to make a snowman. I'm going to make a cake, or I'm going to make a sandwich. Well, we say to bake a cake, really, hornear un pastel, but to make a sandwich. Whereas to do, you can do a procedure, right? I'm doing some interesting work right now. I'm doing my job, for example, to do something, to carry out a process or a procedure, okay? So with make and do, it's important to memorize certain cases, certain maybe exceptions, but the good news is there are a limited number. Okay, with to do, we say to do a job, to do a favor, to do business, to do nothing, to do something, to do exercises, to do homework, to do housework, to do better. I'm doing better now. I'm trying to do my best, to do your best, to do a crossword puzzle or a sudoku, to do research, to do an investigation, to do the shopping, to do wonders, hacer maravillas. These are all cases where we use to do, okay? I suggest you make a list of things you make and things you do. And you can write down, once again, we have eso es un podcast que puedes parar y hacer la lista. Acabo de leer una lista de cosas en que empleamos el verbo to do. Now I'm going to give you a list with make. Make the bed, hacer la cama. No estamos fabricando una cama. But we say to make the bed, to make a change, to make a choice, to make a decision, to make a discovery, to make a fortune, to make arrangements, to make a list, to make noise, to make a living, make a mistake, make a phone call, make a promise, make a request, make a speech, make an announcement, make an effort, make an appointment. These are all cases where we use make, okay? And you can ask me, if you want to ask me on social media for a list, una lista, te puedo pasar una lista, ¿vale? De esas cosas que usamos make or do. But I've basically given you the list, and you can, like I said, you can pause it, you can make your own list, and then write sentences and try to memorize these, okay? But now the challenge is for you to translate a short paragraph. Lo voy a leer en castellano, ¿vale? Voy a leer una frase, un párrafo en castellano, and I want you to translate this into English, and then we're going to check it, okay? It goes like this. Y como es podcast, tampoco voy a leer muy despacio porque siempre puedes pararlo y seguir a tu ritmo, ¿vale? Hago muchas cosas cada día. Hago vestidos con mi máquina de coser. Hago buenas obras para los pobres. Hago tortillas españolas para mis hijos. Hago ocasionales encuestas para una ONG. Hago largas listas de reivindicaciones para mis amigos del sindicato. Y hago ejercicios para mantenerme en forma. ¿Qué hace usted para llenar su día? Okay. All right. I do a lot of things every day. Hago muchas cosas cada día. I do a lot of things every day. I make dresses with my sewing machine. I do good deeds for the poor, right? Hago buenas obras para los pobres. I do good deeds for the poor. I make Spanish omelets for my children. right? Tortilla de patata, tortillas españolas. I make Spanish omelets for my children. I do occasional surveys for an ONG. I make long lists of grievances. That's a good one. Reivindicaciones, grievances with a G. Grievances, grievances. Grievances for my trade union friends, para mis amigos del sindicato. Yes. And I do exercises to stay in shape, para mantenerme en forma, to stay in shape. ¿Qué hace usted para llenar su día? What do you do to fill your day? All right, a little practice with make and do, something that causes a lot of problems. So I just wanted to practice with an exercise where hopefully we can internalize. Here's some good examples and internalize that and improve a little bit with this area that is a common problem area for a lot of people. Okay, we're out of time. I'm going to finish there for today, but I thank you for listening to this episode of the English Hour with Kyle Miller, and I encourage you to share this episode with your friends as we look to grow our community of listeners. So thanks again for listening, and I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.